back to Redemption with Jaden. We're back with some more Lackey Grand Prix gameplay, and this is Lackey Grand Prix number 23, and this will be round 2. It's going to be against Chad Frantz as our opponent for this week, which I was actually kind of surprised. Last week, all of the games, I believe, that were played were within 2 lost souls. Like, I think every game was either 5-3 or 5-4. I think there might have been one tie, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm thinking of, no, I'm pretty sure there was one tie, but otherwise, like, I don't think there was anybody who got more than 2 lost souls of lost soul differential from round 1, which is kind of cool because it means that every game was close, and I'm guessing most of those games were pretty fun. So I think that people are probably trying out the new stuff, and it kind of shows that there's a good blend of kind of themes, and that as far as like power levels and that kind of thing. So if people are trying out new stuff, or if they're just kind of sticking with what they were playing, but other people are trying out new stuff, it just kind of shows that I think people are still figuring out the new meta, and I mean definitely still figuring out the new meta because it's very early, and there is a lot yet to be seen. So that, I think, was a cool takeaway from week 1, but it meant that me, winning 5-3 or no 5-4, 5-4 last week, which it's a close game. Still going to be paired up against a tough opponent because I mean pretty much everyone in these Lucky Grand Prix is kind of a tough opponent now. There's no gimmies here, so which I think is pretty sweet, especially when we're talking like 16, 17 people or something in this Lackey Grand Prix. So I think that's pretty cool. So we're going up against Chad this week. I'll just say up at the front here, there's no audio Chad and I were not on voice chat or anything, so I don't have a recording from him. I did do some audio or like commentary during the game, but I was also not in my studio or whatever. I don't know, my basement, if that's what you want to call it. I was at I wasn't here, so I didn't have my microphone. It was just recorded on my webcam, and so it wasn't the best audio quality, and so I just figured that it would be easier just to watch it back. I'm gonna play it at 2x speed, so that we can get through it a little bit more quickly, and then I'll just do commentary here from the game. Should be a little bit better quality, and I can do a little more analysis of the game, and hopefully kind of touch on the same sort of points that I brought up during the game while playing, though might not remember everything exactly. But anyways, you might be wondering what's going on with the monstrosity in front of you, and I mean, I guess monstrosity is maybe not the right word, especially because there are people that are playing monstrosities these days, 154 card decks or 150 card decks, whatever, which is cool. I'm glad somebody's trying it out, I guess. Sort of, I don't know, and I mean, like, it's interesting to me. It is something that I've done before, like playing 100 plus card decks in Type 1. I've built 150 card Type 1 decks, but I can't say that I'm really looking forward to doing that at any point. I don't know, maybe for the memes, it could be fun to try it out, but it's one of those things where I'm glad somebody else is doing it, and I can just watch and see what happens. Kind of watch from afar. I kind of felt the same way about 100 card decks last year, and with Tim and then Brian, doing and then Card Game Fanatic James doing those decks. Like, that's cool, for you guys. I'll stick with the smaller, my nice 57s. This one's actually a 50, so I know, right? We got a 50 card deck on the channel. So anyway, it's not a monstrosity in size, but it is a little bit uh, interesting, I guess, as far as the actual concept here. So I feel like I'll start out with the offense, even though that was kind of well, I don't know. I guess they both kind of came together at the same time, but the offense is fairly straightforward in the sense that it's a Jeremiah build around deck. So we've got Jeremiah the Weeper, new card from Times to Come, a new hero. He was spoiled fairly early on, or I guess relatively early on, because he was one of the like handful, 10 to 15 cards that were actually spoiled before the set was released at Nationals. So he is a 111 green hero, paralyzes evil characters with strength 5 or less this turn. That's not the super interesting part. The interesting part is where he says, while alone, reveal reserve, may use enhancements from reserve. And the really interesting part that wasn't really clear until later after the set was actually released was that this use enhancements ability means that he can use enhancements regardless of brigade. That's kind of weird, but that's just how use enhancements, like that term, keyword, I guess, key phrase, it actually works, is that if any ability is a use other enhancements ability, then if it doesn't specify like certain type of enhancements that can be used, like well, yeah, I mean it's like the I guess the old Jeremiah. I'm trying to think of a good example. Ethiopian treasure in Roots, it says may use Isaiah enhancements. That means it can use Isaiah enhancements of any brigade. It's not just like he can use Isaiah enhancements that are clay, because he's also clay. Um, he can use Isaiah enhancements of any brigade. Kind of the same thing here with Jeremiah, except he just may use enhancements from reserve. So like while it's revealed, then you can use enhancements from your reserve regardless of brigade, which is very interesting with certain cards that can go back to your reserve and get replayed, like Mary's Prophetic Act and Sin Offering. Jeremiah is an OT priest, so that still works. So you can play each of these up to 4 times if you maintain initiative. The way that most people are going to try to maintain initiative is with a card like Potter in the Clay, which says you may increase or decrease your human hero XX. You may increase or decrease an evil character in battle XX. This card is like it's one of those cards that I think is conceptually very cool, because it is kind of a combo enabler in like an initiative enabler, which is kind of then a combo enabler. So I think cards like this are cool. I would actually be a fan of seeing more things like this. I'm pretty sure I've used Potter and the Clay in some combo type decks before. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but Jeremiah is definitely an option for doing that. It's a good outlet for doing that. So basically, you attack with Jeremiah, you get initiative, you start out with Potter in the Clay to both decrease Jeremiah XX and then increase their evil character XX, and then you're pretty much guaranteed to have initiative, even though Jeremiah's got a big butt here with 11 toughness. He's still like, if you've got 8 cards in hand, you're going to -7/3, and then you're making your opponent's evil character, at least 8/8, probably bigger, probably like 13/13 on average or something like that. So yeah, you're definitely going to be getting a good amount of initiative here. You do have to be a little bit careful as far as like if you're playing enhancements that don't, or that have bigger numbers, I guess, that could pass initiative. But I'm not really doing that in the reserve here, because Mary's Prophetic Act and Sin Offering both reserve themselves, so they're not going to stay in battle. And then I've also got First Sacrifice, which doesn't have any numbers, and then Plague of Lice, which is just a 1/3, so that seems okay. But worst case scenario, you play Potter in the Clay, you increase them, and then you can play something else, like maybe play First Sacrifice, and then play Lost Child Found to bounce Potter in the Clay, First Sacrifice, and something else, I guess. I mean, you can do that with Plague of Lice too, if you've got the numbers for it, or the initiative for it. So my idea was just try to like basically tear apart their deck a little bit, tear apart their territory a little bit, and then tear apart their hand, a little bit with First Sacrifice and Plague of Lice, and just try to hit a bunch of key cards so that you can hopefully just walk in. Like that's the idea here, because as you can see, there's no column for good enhancements in this deck right here, in the deck that I've got laid out. We do have a few covenants and some dual alignment stuff, which we'll get into more when we're talking about the defense, but Perfidy can be good on offense here as well. Vow for Samuel can be used as an enhancement if you need it. But yeah, other than that, we're just going to be trying to play stuff from reserve, get a bunch of value. Ahimelech can draw some cards with Sin Offering going back and forth from reserve. So if you get to play Sin Offering, then you can, while you have Ahimelech in territory and you keep doing that, then you can draw 4 cards while you're making this attack. I don't know if that's particularly worth it in this deck, because we're trying to do Jeremiah on turn 2 ideally, and Ahimelech, there's no guarantee that he'll be out, but I mean, because we have so much space here, like Jeremiah is pretty much the only way that this deck is going to be rescuing Lost Souls, and so because of that, I have space for cards like Ahimelech to kind of supplement the offense a little bit to try to speed things up. We've got also options like Psychar, which works with Mayor's Prophetic Act in kind of the same way, and then you could put in other cards that reserve things. Although I guess Perfidy be another way to do it, and it kind of works well with the brown evil enhancements, like the Persian stuff that does a lot of reserving. So that's something that I actually didn't think all the way through until just now, and I was like, oh yeah, that kind of works with the Persian stuff too. But so I don't know, maybe in a future iteration of this deck, maybe Sidecar goes in instead of Ahimelech. Yeah, I would consider that, especially because something with Covenant with David can put it in play. So yeah, it's all right. All right, I might change the deck on the fly here, but it's too late for this game, and there will be other reasons why it's funny that it's too late to change the deck for this game. I'll get to that when we're, well, actually, I'll just talk about it right now. So I talked about all the good enhancements in the reserve, and there were going to be more good enhancements in the reserve, but I was like, what is the number one way that people are dealing with Jeremiah? Usually it's by just not blocking him, and then dealing with him in another way, like with a dominant or something to capture him or something in territory, or what have you. So the first turn, or I guess on turn 2, ideally I'll be going with Defender of the Saints to Jeremiah to make him CBN, because that's the other way that people can stop him, is just by negating his ability. If you attack with Defender of the Saints to make him CBN, then your opponent pretty much has to either block and get all the things happen, or they have to have some kind of dominant or other way to deal with him. If they don't block, if they just decide okay, I'm going to wait until he's negatable, then that's probably what they're going to do. So to kind of combat that, for one, you want something that protects Jeremiah in territory. I went with the Restored Land. You want something to help prevent dominance from being a block. So something like Ark of the Covenant can help with that. I was wanting to stop Christian Martyr falling away, that kind of stuff from happening. And then Defender of the Saints to make him CBN. And finally, to kind of go around the not blocking him strategy, I was like, well, what if I put a little package in the reserve to basically force my opponent to block, so that I can then have initiative and play some things. So we've got Elijah, Goliath, Satan, Seat, and Tribute. If we can get all 4 of these cards out of reserve, then we can use Tribute to give Goliath to my opponent. Satan's Seat negates protectability, so it negates the protectability on Tribute that protects Goliath from harm this turn. Elijah can then choose Goliath to block. Goliath kicks Elijah out, and then I can present a new hero. So I can present Defender of the Saints, and then Jeremiah. You could also, if you don't necessarily need Defender of the Saints in this case, because it's going to be difficult for your opponent to negate Jeremiah unless they have a dominant or something. It's specifically not a play ability on Jeremiah. It's not that he's playing enhancements from reserve. He can use enhancements from reserve, so Goliath does not negate that part. Goliath does, however, negate cards like Ahimelech, and you would negate Psykar. So, yeah, you aren't going to get as much benefit there, but I figure that's worth it in order to get the first sacrifice, Plague of Lice, and all this other stuff going. So, how do I get these 4 cards out of reserve? You might be asking, well, there's a specific card that is great at getting multiple cards out of reserve. It's called Concealed Riches, and I was putting this deck together, and had this whole reserve package idea for Concealed Riches, and then I forgot to put it in the deck. So I'll point out the point during the game when I realized that, oh, I forgot to put Concealed Riches in here. So there's pretty much no way for me to get, I mean, for sure, I don't think there's the only way for me to get Tribute out of reserve is delivered off of Malachite Slave or Queen T, or just having, one of those in play, having an Egyptian, and then I can activate Tribute from my reserve, but I don't think I have a way to get Goliath out of my reserve, except for Deceiver, and Satan's Seat probably doesn't have a way. Yeah, there's the deck was not built to not have Concealed Riches to access these cards, and it's one of those packages where it's like I'm not going to need it every game, so I'm not I'm not like super concerned about not having ways to more ways to access these cards, but I did want to have that option available for when that was going to be needed, when I felt like, oh, my opponent's not going to block and they're going to have some other way to answer. So that was definitely an oversight on my part. Didn't end up making too much of a difference with this game. I don't think that's spoiling a whole lot to say that. So, yeah, it didn't really matter, but this deck should, in theory, be at 51 cards with Concealed Riches in there. Or I could have, figured out something to cut to get it back to, or cut in its place and gotten it to 50. That's probably what I would have done if I had remembered that Concealed Riches was supposed to be in there. So anyway, that you can just ignore this. You can just pretend this is a 6-card reserve. Yeah, I definitely would have put a few more like fun enhancements to put in here, like probably some more that draw cards and mess with your opponent a little bit more, but that I wanted to have this package in here, and then these were kind of the remaining 6 that I felt were best to really take advantage of Jeremiah's abilities here. Then the rest of the offense is basically just about making sure that I can get to Jeremiah and get Jeremiah back. So Victorious Being, Defender of the Saints, and Watchman can all get to Jeremiah from various locations. Importantly, all of them go to the discard pile. Defender of the Saints doesn't go to hand or territory, so you do have to be a little careful, I guess, with having Jeremiah in the main deck. A lot of people are putting Jeremiah in reserve to start, and then Defender of the Saints and Watchman can both get him from there, and Defender of the Saints being the ideal to make him CBN, but I just figured I'd put him in the main deck to make sure that I have more outs to get to him on turn 2, because there's not really much else going on for this offense, and there aren't that many ways to get him outside of the heroes. Solomon's Temple is another way, but if Jeremiah was in reserve, then Solomon's Temple wouldn't be a way to get him there. So that is what I decided to do. Have Jeremiah in the deck. That way, I've got plenty of ways to get to him on turn 2, and then turn 1. The idea here is either using Joel to kind of help craft my hand a little bit. Can kind of figure out what cards I don't really need, and then also I can play and convert an evil human from my opponent's deck, kind of get a scope on what I'm going up against and what I might need to be concerned about with Jeremiah, because he's good, but he's not completely bulletproof, and you do have to have a plan for some defenses or defensive options that your opponent might have, especially ones that can negate Jeremiah and make it so that you don't have access to your reserve, which is when we get into trouble here with this particular offense. So yeah, Joel is just kind of just to scope out what we're going up against, and then the other option here is Ezekiel, which is pretty much only an option because of Watchman letting me draw 2 if I go to Ezekiel. So Watchman to Ezekiel, I get to look at my opponent's hand, top deck an evil card. So again, it's kind of scoping out a little bit of what I'm going up against, except it's kind of figuring out the most relevant parts, I guess, what my opponent actually has in hand at the time, and then also getting that draw 2. And the hand information is also relevant for the defense, which you're probably piecing together what it could be just by looking at it, but I will go over that as well. So anyways, that is the offense, fairly small and compact because we've got a lot of things going on with this defense, and we want to make sure that we can do them. The main thing going on with the defense is this new guy, Ahasuerus the Father. A lot of people are using him to get stuff like Pride of Lions and those 150 card decks and Confusion and Honor Thy Enemy. All these very understandably popular brown enhancements. They're powerful and can go and do some pretty bonkers things on turn 1. What I wanted to do was to go get Unified Language and then give it to my opponent. There aren't that many ways to search for Unified Language out of your deck. People were using like Jacob to search for it as a good enhancement, a good Genesis enhancement, and then kind of set up the combo that way. But with Ahasuerus the Father, you can actually get it and do the combo all in one block. And between this guy and a few other new cards, this actually became pretty easy to do fairly consistently on turn 1. So this deck really doesn't mind, or kind of wants to go second and get a block on the first turn where I'm actually going to be able to not just take the brown enhancement from deck, but also play an OT brown enhancement. That's what kind of sets this strategy apart from like just doing the same thing except with Korra. Like Korra gives you that ability to take an OT brown enhancement from deck, same as Ahasuerus, but he doesn't have the playability. So you have to get initiative somehow, or probably special initiative in Korra's case, to play like Interrupt the Battle and Band with Destroying Bands or Korra's Rebellion, which we do have in here for pretty much that purpose, but we can do it faster with Ahasuerus and not count on our opponent having a negatable battle winner or something like that. So, or not having a dominant. So Ahasuerus can take an OT brown enhancement from deck. A lot of times we want that to be Unified Language. Sometimes it will be No Strength to Stand because this is kind of the other part of the combo enabling that we got from the new set. You can take an OT brown card from deck or reserve, so not just enhancement, and then Persian may ban to an evil OT human. So pretty much the ideal situation is we've got Ahasuerus, we've got Queen T in hand. There's plenty of ways to get both of them as well. Malachite Slave, Darius' Satraps. We've got Murderous Command, Perplexing Vision, Crowd's Choice. So many ways to get to these two. And then if we have, I guess we also need No Strength to Stand, or there are other ways to do it, but Ahasuerus can take Unified Language. You can then play No Strength to Stand to search for Jehoiakim, add him to battle, or like ban to an evil OT human. So ban to Jehoiakim, give them Unified Language, ban to Queen T. Like that's kind of the ideal scenario, but there are also lots of other ways to do it between Murderous Command, Perplexing Vision with like the add to battle stuff, and then Crowd's Choice just to search for what you need beforehand. Balaam can search for one of the dominants for the add to battle stuff, and then also you could add him to battle as a magician. So let's say you just do Perplexing Vision to take No Strength to Stand, so that you've got Ahasuerus can go get Unified Language, and then you've got No Strength to Stand for Jehoiakim and Queen T. So it's just like the Perplexing Vision is very flexible because you just get any evil Daniel card. So No Strength to Stand and Ahasuerus both fit well in that. And then also Crowd's Choice and Murderous Command can just pick up the other pieces. Like in a lot of the test draws I was doing, I was like using both of these dominants before I even blocked, like just to tutor for pieces of the combo, because they don't work as well with the add to battle part. I mean, they certainly can, but Murderous Command is trickier on turn 1 because you have to have a hero to discard, and Perplexing Vision adds a Daniel human, which, usually I want to be adding other characters. Like, usually I want Ahasuerus to be the first evil character in battle because it helps to make sure that I don't have board advantage and that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's pretty much the whole strategy of the concept of the defense here. Is we've got Deceiver, we've got a Malachite Slave, we got Satraps, lots of ways to get to Ahasuerus right away, and then we got Jehoiakim and Queen T, and lots of ways to get to them, and then we've got Fallen King who can play Queen T from deck. We got Korra who's kind of a substitute for Ahasuerus and can search for unified language, and then either desperate times you play Destroying Bands, or you play Korra's Rebellion or Lurking to ban to Slave, or to Jehoiakim or Queen T, Jehoiakim and then Queen T, I guess, so that you can actually give the give and discard, or you can use one of the other banding cards. Like if you already have Jehoiakim, you don't necessarily need Strength to Sand, so Ahasuerus can just get Destroying Bands, Korra's Rebellion, Perez, or Lurking. Perez was one that I thought was actually, like, I was a little unsure about it, but I was like, okay, well, it's a Daniel card, so that's kind of nice. Then the reserve up to X cards is actually, like, it's super flexible. You don't necessarily need to hit their heroes in battle. In fact, you probably don't want to, because you don't want to put them in special initiative. But then you just ban to up to 2 characters. So you ban to your Jehoiakim, you could ban a Queen T, but you could also ban to like Balaam to get one of the dominants, or something like that, or Fallen King and Jehoiakim. Then you could do Fallen King to play Queen T, and then Jehoiakim to ban to Queen T. So like it just seemed like it was fairly flexible. That's probably the worst of the enhancements in here, just because it doesn't ban to as many characters and doesn't interrupt the battle. But I wanted to have at least some battle winning potential here, so that's what we got for actually like winning battles. I mean, we got Scattered and Better to Be Slaves as well. Plus, I mean, just banning to a bunch of evil characters with Destroying Bands and Korra's Rebellion, you can bring in their defense, and yeah, you can, at least assuming they have some defense left eventually. But yeah, those were that's the whole concept of the defense here. Last thing you might be wondering about here is, okay, what is Nebuchadnezzar doing in here? And I was kind of wondering the same thing after as I was putting the deck together, but it just kind of seemed to fall into place and kind of make sense in a weird way. I was like, well, if I've got a bunch of banding enhancements, like, one of the best characters to band in is one that tosses the next enhancement, especially if you're able to do other pieces of this as well. Like if you're banding to Ahasuerus and you get to play another enhancement, or I mean, really just like if you're banding in a bunch of characters and trying to win the battle that way, you want to make sure that your opponent doesn't have as many answers. And if we're putting a lot of pressure on our opponent's resources, in particular if we're able to discard 16 cards off the top of their deck right away, then tossing some of their enhancements can be pretty good. Plus we've got Lurking, we've got Scatter, we've got Destroying Bands. So there's a lot of things that Nebuchadnezzar can play. And then Idol of Nebuchadnezzar works well here to also kind of limit what they can use effectively. And Perplexing Vision can add Nebuchadnezzar to battle after searching for him, and that kind of thing. Really, this all started because I wanted another idol in the deck, because the Fallen King is kind of a sneaky way to win battles with A-Bomb. So the Fallen King can play an OT Royal Female, usually going to be Queen T. Yeah, because I cut all the other OT Royal Females. Or you can, ban to an OT Royal Female, so you can ban to Queen T. Or you can play an OT Site, OT Idol, or Evil Royal Female from deck, which I guess doesn't have to be OT. That's interesting. Or reserve if an idol is active. So if we're not playing Queen T here, like let's say we don't have any of the pieces of the combo early, they just attack with a lone hero, you can block the Fallen King, activate A-Bomb from deck, reserve it to discard the hero in battle. If I have Idol of Nebuchadnezzar active, then I can use Fallen King again to activate A-Bomb from my reserve. I don't really care about deactivating Idol of Nebuchadnezzar at that point to activate A-Bomb. So I was like, this just seems like a good idol to fit with the deck. And it does have to be an OT idol if I want to activate it from my deck. So I thought about like Image of the Beast, but I was like, no, let's just try out Idol of Nebuchadnezzar. It actually just kind of fits well with Nebuchadnezzar being in here. So with all the banding, and it just kind of made sense. So I was like, let's try it out. I'm feeling it. So we went with that. I think it was actually a decent call. Like I think it seems to fit well. But yeah. Anyways, that is pretty much everything to mention here. I guess the Lost Soul lineup I could talk about a little bit. Darkness and Dread, pretty straightforward. Like why we want those. We want to get to our combo on defense here, and so any ways that we can help enable that before before I actually get a turn, we're going to be doing that. So that's also where Grumbled, Shepherds, Prosperity come in. Lawless, yep. And then Humble, just to make sure that it can actually go through if your opponent is negating evil cards or something like that. So pretty much every Lost Soul in here should be fairly self-explanatory. And I think that's really all that needs to be mentioned with the deck. So yeah, if you're going to play this deck, put Conceal the Riches in, because you want to be able to get to this stuff in your reserve. I kind of flashed this earlier, but here are some of the cards that were in the deck at some point that I just moved over to tokens, and they were cuts. The Confusion was a tough cut. Enjoy Their Hands, like that would have been a fun one to bounce with, like Covenant of Time and Lost Child Found, all that kind of thing. But and then Pagan Sailors and Jonah for more A-bomb shenanigans. But yeah, these are ones to consider if you want some other toys to play with, I guess. Switch things around a little bit. Abandon was one that I was actually kind of excited to play in reserve. That was one of the cards that would have been in these 4 slots, because I was like, well, I've got a lot of stuff that's targeting their deck, targeting their hand. I gotta make sure that I can negate their storehouse or whatever is protecting their stuff. So Abandon just seemed like it fit really well, and then I can also use it on defense, like Queen T and Balaam and stuff, and just like, oh, it's perfect. But because of the reserve package here, I was like, oh, I can just use Satan's Seat to negate their storehouse and that kind of thing. It will help with tribute, but also negate all their other protection. So it just seemed like that made sense to play instead. So yeah, these were some of the cards I was considering though. Covenant of Time, like you play it, take a good card from reserve, convert it to an artifact, and then you can bounce the First Sacrifice or Plague of Lice or Enjoy Their Hands. So those were cards to consider. Did not end up making the final cut. Concealed Riches did not end up making the final cut, but it should have. So don't leave that out if you want to try out this list. But for the sake of the deck list, I guess, that I actually used, I guess in the description, the deck list will probably be exactly what I played for the tournament. So just, if you see someone playing this deck and they don't have Concealed Riches in it, they probably didn't watch the video. They just copied the list. So you can help them out and be like, hey, you should put Concealed Riches in there. Anyways, before we get into the game, we of course want to do a shout out to our sponsors over at Your Turn Games. They are having a Labor Day sale right now because Times to Come is now in stock. You can now go to Your Turn Games, order it. It's not just a pre-order anymore. It's an actual order that you can assume will be fulfilled within a few days, because that's the way they roll over Your Turn Games. You can order singles, you can order boxes, so all of that is available for Times to Come. And then there's a Labor Day sale going on where you get a free booster pack of Times to Come for every $35 that you spend. Now this is only this is only money that you spend on actual product, so no shipping or taxes will contribute to that 35. So you might just have to throw a couple of extra singles on top just to make sure that you get to that increment of 35 and get that extra booster pack. And you got to be quick though, because this deal does end on Friday, September 5th at midnight Eastern time. So just before midnight of the next day. So you've got, a little over a day, about a day and a half, I guess, from when this video is releasing to order that and still be able to take advantage of the free packs coming along with it. So yeah, make sure you check that out if you were planning to order some times to come. If you didn't do a pre-order or anything, now would be a good time to do it because you get some bonus cards. All right, finally, we're gonna be getting into the game with Chad, so let's go ahead and do it. And like I said, we'll be watching this at 2x speed, so I'll try to make sure I can keep up here. But so I started out with a Darkness Lost Soul and kind of an interesting hand. I had most of the pieces to my combo. Queen T, seeing that early is nice. We got a Complacent, a Darkness, and an Escape over on Chad's side, and Chad won the die roll and decided to go first. So we're going to be trying to see if we can pull off the combo here on turn 1, which, as you can see, doesn't look super likely because there's no way to get to Ahasuerus except for Darkness. But even then, I'm not going to be able to get to all of the pieces, unfortunately. So, which is actually that was actually somewhat rare from the gold fishing that I did on the with this deck before the game. So, but that seems to be how it goes, where you goldfish and it looks great, and then you get in the game and it's like, oh, what's going on? This deck doesn't do anything. So anyway, Chad starts out by using his Escape to get Galileans, and then he swaps Herod Agrippa the First from his hand to Herod's Treachery in deck, which kind of has me suspecting, like, okay, he's doing Herod's Treachery to Crowd's Choice for some kind of combo or something. Like he wants something that he wants to set up early. So then now he's using his Darkness Lost Soul and trying to I don't remember what he gets, honestly, but so yeah, at this point I was just trying to figure out what he was kind of wanting to set up with that Herod's Treachery, because normally that's not a card that gets used in a Herod's defense unless you're trying to set something up with Crowd's Choice early on. So yeah, it goes to Deceiver with Darkness, which makes sense. That's also what I believe I will end up doing with my Darkness here. Yep. So grab the Deceiver, which can be a couple of things here. Deceiver to Ahasuerus to No Strength to Sand to Jehoiakim. Can kind of get a few more things set up, but doesn't get me to Unified Language as well. So might have to pivot a little bit, as you will likely be able to see here. So Herod the Great coming down, and then Herod's Treachery. Getting to take an evil NT card from his deck, which is in fact Crowd's Choice. And yeah, so at first I was kind of like, oh, like, Chad, what, you're not even using like a new defense? Come on, man. Like, what, I didn't know what offense he was running at this point, because I saw Complacent. I was like, oh, is this just like a Soul Surfer type of deck with like a New Testament offense? But then he put down Relayer of Messages, and I was like, oh, cool. Okay, there is some new stuff going on here, which is good. So right now, he just put Relayer of Messages into territory and is about to go into battle. Relayer of Messages was one that I thought was interesting. You get the tutor for the OT enhancement, and I was trying to think of like what he's trying to tutor for, because like by itself it doesn't seem like it's all that great of an ability or like of a character, unless you're really like in a Zechariah themed deck, I guess. But yeah, I just don't know that that's really gonna have enough support yet to kind of be like full on Zechariah, and couldn't think of like any OT enhancements that were really worth having a direct tutor for, that you could have early or something like that. He just it doesn't seem like that strong of a hero, and you've got other options that are probably better. So anyway, the attack here was Angel of the Winds to the Watchman, the promo version, to Ezekiel God Strengthens, which is the Roots one. So he got to draw 4 cards off of the attack here, and I don't know why it's showing my tokens there when the hand is highlighted. Kind of a weird little bug there. But anyway, he drew 4 cards. He drew the Orphan's Lost Soul to protect Lost Souls from evil cards, and then the Harvest to make a token here, and gave me the block. The kind of unfortunate part here was that Watchman negates Evil Search and Shuffle abilities, and so I still block with Deceiver here, but instead of getting to go to Ahasuerus and then no strength to stand Jehoiakim and just kind of get more things set up, I was looking at Ahasuerus and I was like, man, yeah, like the tutor part is not going to work there. So yeah, not really looking at the options that I had. Like my Fallen King wasn't going to work either. Pretty much everything is stopped by Watchmen there. Getting Evil Search and Shuffle abilities. You can see why Meshach is one of the most powerful heroes, I think, in the Times to Come set, because basically turning off your opponent's search and shuffle stuff from on turn 1 is very powerful, and that also includes drawing too, with Meshach at least. So and that also stops CBP stuff, so I wouldn't be able to use Deceiver here. So it was actually a little bit risky going Deceiver when I know that Daniel is a meta relevant threat at this point. But so I couldn't go to Ahasuerus or anything else that searches there, so I just had to go straight to Jehoiakim. And fortunately, I had Lurking in hand that I could give to Chad. And it's no unified kingdom, but I figured I could at least just try to get as many as I could. I was looking with Deceiver for other options, and then just gonna I thought about going to something else and then waiting for the Queen T reveal for next turn, but definitely worked out better to go the way that I did. Queen T can negate a card or draw 1. I decided just to draw 1 here to have a little bit more fuel for myself, and then also I didn't want to negate Ezekiel because that would potentially lower the number of brigades in his hand, which actually, as you can see, would have done. The draw 2 from Ezekiel would have been the Cross and Moses here, assuming he didn't reorganize anything in his hand, which doesn't look like he did. So the Cross and Moses would have gotten back, which would have taken 2 good brigades out of his hand. And I think looking at his deck, that was pretty much, I think I pretty much hit the maximum number of good brigades that he's running, getting both Moses and New Covenant in there, because most of the rest of the deck is just green and silver. So there were 5 good brigades total in there, and then the 7 evil brigades. So I was able to hit 12 cards off the top of Chad's deck. And you could see the 12 cards there were nothing super significant. I didn't hit either of the big 2. The only dominant I hit was Guardian of Your Souls, which neither of our decks really cared about. Neither of us were really doing any Lost Soul targeting or converting of heroes. So that didn't really matter, but I guess the big thing was just the amount, or the quantity of cards. I think was fairly significant. It just took out some of the key players, some of his heroes that were important. So notably, there were also 2 Lost Souls in there that we didn't realize were now in his discard pile. But anyways, so he plays Retribution for Sin here, which is negate and shuffle an evil card. When we looked at his hand, you could see that was his only enhancement, I believe, that he was able to play here. So that meant that if he was actually wanting to deal with both evil characters, he was going to have to negate Jehoiakim and shuffle him, which I actually just realized now should have given me my Lurking back. But it did kick Queen T out and then shuffle Jehoiakim. I didn't have a negate for it. So he did end up getting the Lost Soul here. And I just gave him Darkness because I figured the Meek Lost Soul I could deal with, or the token I could deal with in other ways. But anyways, he got the soul there. So 1-0 in Chad's favor here. I guess I'll probably have a score tally over here like I normally do. But anyway, don't have it there yet. So yeah, I should have Lurking back in my hand at this point. I forgot, we didn't catch that part. It did its job, but yeah, you can see I hit a good chunk of heroes there with 3 of the Angels, notably Defender of the Saints, going to discard, and then also Zechariah and Amos is probably the most important one there. But here I'm kind of realizing that I did not hit Victorious Being, so he still has ways, with that, and also the Watchman to get Amos back from his discard pile. Amos is gonna, maybe the second most impactful green hero in the set. Jeremiah being maybe number one. Zechariah is maybe close, but Amos is definitely a big one where he's basically just a battle winner if you can band him into battle. And he's CBI, so you can shuffle their evil card or their evil character. So he's a battle winner against a lone evil character, and there's lots of ways to get to him, band him into battle. So he's definitely going to be a big threat for green. There's not a whole lot that protects from shuffle specifically. So either multiple characters or preventing heroes are kind of the ways to stop him or stopping them from banding somehow. So he did put Moses down into play, which I thought was kind of interesting, but I guess stopping my territory class stuff is good. And I thought this was actually kind of funny, where I hit delivered on the star ability in my draw 3 there, and I hit his top card, and it was 3 woes. Like, of the 12 cards, well, the 13 cards, I guess, that I discarded between last turn and this turn, the one that I discarded here was the most impactful. Like, hitting a 3 woes there was pretty good. Idol of the Nebuchadnezzar goes up. I get to search for Nebuchadnezzar, and kind of noted, I guess, that he did have a layer of messages in territory, which is a hero, or a good card with negated in the special ability. So if a layer of messages ever attacks, I get to capture a human hero. And now I'm just trying to figure out how to attack here. As I mentioned in the intro, my turn 1 options are pretty much Joel or Ezekiel, and I've got Victorious Being here, which could go to the Watchman, and Defender of the Saints here, who could go to Ezekiel, or, I probably wouldn't go to Ezekiel with Defender, but yeah, Victorious Being probably could go to, can definitely go to either Watchman or Joel here. Watchman would get me a total of a draw 3 between Victorious Being and Watchman, and then I also get to look at his hand. But because I already saw his hand, I think what I end up doing here is going Victorious Being to draw 1, and then going to Joel to kind of try to craft my hand and then see what he's got left in his deck here. But I was tempted to go with Watchman, especially after what he did to me, where he's negating my search and shuffle, and then got to draw with Ezekiel. I was like, that'd be kind of cool. But if he had like a Cherubim or some other Ezekiel heroes for me to ban to, then I might have done Ezekiel there. But end up just going with Joel. Get to shuffle up to 7 cards. I can throw my Nebuchadnezzar back into my deck, and then Abimelech, that's Abimelech, yeah. Abimelech would also, I wanted to put him back in my deck because I was going up against a Herod the Great, so don't really want to put him into territory because he's just going to be vulnerable. That was one of the things, kind of what I was talking about in the intro, is that you have to be careful, kind of know what you're going up against. Choose the blocker or choose the rescuer evil character can definitely be a threat against Jeremiah. So having any unprotected characters, heroes down in your territory can make it so that you won't be able to utilize Jeremiah's ability. So right here, I'm thinking about how many I want to do, and I'm thinking I've narrowed it down to these 6. And it was pretty much at this point that when I was deliberating over delivered, I was like, does this actually get me something that I want, or something good? And then I was like, wait, I forgot to put Concealed Riches in my deck. So that was the point where I was kind of kicking myself a little bit, where I was like, oh shoot, like, did I really mess that up? And I wasn't really sure at this point, like, if I was going to need it to kind of guarantee that Jeremiah could work at some point. But so yeah, you can see that Chad is down to 17 cards left in his deck at the end of his turn. The end of his first turn, he was down to 19 cards. I mean, he got a lot of his lost souls. He drew a lot of cards, and I discarded 12. So, and then I discarded one at the beginning of my turn, and I'm now converting one of his evil characters here. Thinking about Herod Archelaus, but end up going with the Outsiders here. I just felt like Outsiders, because of the kind of auto block potential against Jeremiah, where it is going to put me in special initiative, and also I'm not really too worried about the whole like board advantage part at this point. But I just figured Outsiders might have been the more difficult character for me to deal with, especially if I'm not putting more heroes down for because of Herod the Great. Then Outsiders would actually be able to get initiative against Jeremiah, unless if he was blocking from hand. So assuming that he wasn't paralyzed. So Joel comes in, converts Outsiders to blue, I believe. And Joel is a 212, so definitely going to be getting some good initiative here against Herods, but I do have to try to do something, though, with this perfidy. I think my idea was, like, I'm probably not going to win the battle with perfidy, but if I can reserve 2 of his enhancements, particularly probably his good enhancements, is what I'm more concerned about, then then perfidy will have done its job. Joel will have done his job, and I don't really care too much about like getting Joel back. If I really need to, I've got plenty of ways to get him back with Victorious Being and Watchmen and all that. But really, we're just going to be going with Jeremiah. The rest of the game is the plan anyway. So Herod the Great coming in, playing Herod's Temple from deck. I'm kind of tempted to leave it because he reserved a Herod Archelaus off the top in order to toss enhancements. And I wasn't really planning to do a whole lot with Joel anyway, but I figured that because it was straight up my initiative and perfidy would actually save my Joel, I was like, well, I might as well play the woes on Herod's Temple. I'm probably going to want my woes as evil anyway to negate Moses or something at some point, or just negating Herod's Temple, because that was definitely going to be a threat to Jeremiah. Then I figured I might as well just play it here, and then I could land perfidy, hopefully. So yeah, Archelaus goes back on top, but then Chad asked for dominant initiative, which made me a little bit disappointed because I was like, well, I kind of wanted my perfidy I kind of wanted to be able to play my perfidy and get the hand information here, especially for my block, but so be it. It's actually probably better this way, that Chad ends up playing a battle dominant here at some point. Come on, Chad, hurry up. Yeah, so he plays Chronicles of the Kings, and so my thought was, all right, do I play perfidy to to try to save my Joel? And the answer was definitely no. Like, yeah, it's not worth it. Plus, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, that Chad had an evil enhancement or 2 that he could have played on Herod the Great anyway. So I'm like, all right, well, we can just say perfidy, maybe use it on defense. So I put down Solomon's Temple and pass the turn. It's kind of noting here that Moses being uncomplacent was actually still kind of nice for me, because wanting to be able to play Perplexing Vision to go get Ahasuerus. So they do, or Chad does have board advantage right now, so that would help out. But I do have Darius' Satraps as well to enable that if needed. But the complacent being off right now, I think, was definitely benefiting me more than it was for Chad, although I guess we saw him being able to play Chronicles there, but he wouldn't have played that if I wasn't able to play Woes. So that definitely helped out, I think, in my favor. Also of note, we do realize this a little bit later, but you might have caught it already. Outsiders actually should be discarded by now because of game rule. I don't have any good brigades in play, so it's currently a 0/0 character. But we'll figure that out eventually. which is actually it's a little unfortunate. I mentioned because Jehoiakim Puppet King, he bans to an evil royal human, so I could have actually blocked with Jehoiakim, banned it to Herod the Great, and chosen outsiders if it wasn't discarded here. Chad kind of went in the tank for a little while here, but ends up playing a crowd's choice as good. He was trying to figure out what basically how to get around my queen T, stop me from blowing up a bunch more of his deck, as he's only got 12 cards left in there. So he goes for Faith of Samuel. And here's where I mentioned that outsiders should be discarded. And that was kind of another consideration, I guess, with playing outsiders over like Archelaus or something with Joel, is that if Joel didn't survive that battle, I knew that outsiders wouldn't make it. But also, in another sense, it might have been better if I were would have played a hero or a character that would have survived, so that I did have that Herod the Great choose the blocker option or choose the rescuer option. So Cross gets activated here. A little unfortunate because I was just talking about how complacent was off, so I could play Perplexing Vision, but Chad put up the Cross. He also put Patrollers of the Earth into play, which notably does trigger Idol of Nebuchadnezzar, but I missed it, unfortunately. So yeah, even playing a character in territory, or putting a character in territory, is considered playing it. So that does give an Idol of Nebuchadnezzar trigger if it does have negated in the special ability. But I missed it, so I probably would have captured his Ezekiel here, because I kind of wanted Moses to be alive still, but it actually, I think, kind of worked out that I didn't capture, because Chad will then kind of forget about that ability later on, which comes in handy. So now he goes Victorious Being to Amos, and Amos shuffles an evil card from each player, so he shuffled my Queen T and then shuffled his own Herod the Great. Unfortunately, I did not have a way to get back to Queen T, which was pretty sad, because I did have the whole combo here otherwise, where I could have gone Darius' Satraps to Ahasuerus to Unified Language, and then Jehoiakim and Queen T. So yeah, it was pretty unfortunate that he had managed to have the way to shuffle Queen T there, but I still go to Ahasuerus, and in this case just take a different brown enhancement. I'm looking at Unified Language there, thinking about it, and I was like, well, actually, there is a chance if I take Mask of Arrogance that I could still do it by playing Mask of Arrogance, drawing 3, and if I draw exactly Queen T and Unified Language, then I can do it, because I can play Destroying Bands to band in Jehoiakim, and then do the thing. But unfortunately, we did not get there, so instead I just played Mask, draw 3, get a Crowd's Choice, my Satraps back, and Watchman, and then do Perfidy to go check out his hand, which just seemed like a very solid play. If he was playing Crowd's Choice to go get a good enhancement, then that's a pretty good indicator that he's pretty light on battle winners enhancements here. So, and I do get the repeat trigger there, so 4 or more brigades. We do see both Chariot and Second Coming in there, so there wasn't really a chance for me to get rid of those with anything at this point, unless he shuffled them back into his deck somehow. But I did get rid of both of his good enhancements, and got to win that battle by the numbers there. So people are talking about Perfidy as not being all that great, and I don't know, to me it seems like a pretty good card. So it doesn't always win you the battle like that, because normally you're playing it when you have initiative. You're usually not playing it outside of initiative like I did there. But I don't know, I still think it's pretty good. It enables some cool stuff. I think there's just more battles going on now, and so being able to take out 2 of their enhancements just seems pretty good. And the fact that it doesn't usually pass initiative or like change the initiative circumstances. Like it doesn't usually make you go from losing the battle to, or like losing the battle to winning the battle. Then you can play it and still probably have initiative to play something else, which, some might think of as a downside because it doesn't just win you the battle, but I kind of look at it as an upside because then you get to just go for it and then play something else that has even more of an impact, or that they're gonna have a hard time negating if you get rid of their enhancements. So let them do so. So anyway, Chad passes a turn to me here. I keep my woes on Herod's Temple. I decided I didn't really need dominance that much this round, and then so I could kind of play around the cross a little bit because I was actually not thinking I was going to be attacking with Jeremiah this turn. I I kind of like having glory, but you don't really need it with Jeremiah if you're playing it right, I guess. It's nice to have that backup. So even if I was going to go Jeremiah this turn, then I wouldn't necessarily need glory as backup there. I would just, kind of, actually, I think the cross gives a little bit more protection for Jeremiah. It was something I actually considered for my own deck here, just to slow down my opponent a little bit, or with their like dom blocks and that kind of thing. So I think cross actually probably does go in Jeremiah decks overall, but so anyway, as I'm thinking about my attack here, I've got Jeremiah in hand, which is a little unfortunate because I kind of want Defender of the Saints to be able to make him CBN, because I saw that my opponent had Deceiver, I saw that he had Herod's Guard, so I had ways to get to Herod Agrippa the First, who can negate Jeremiah. And what I didn't think about here is that actually, all I would need is, oh right, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Or like during the game, I was like, oh, if I just had like an artifact that I could put in Solomon's Temple, then I wouldn't have to worry about that. I could just underdeck the artifact to then negate Herod Agrippa the First. But I didn't have that, so I was like, well, I know that this is his play. If I make this play, this is what he's going to be able to do. So I'm just going to not play into that, I guess. I'm going to assume that he's going to make the heads up play, and realize that that's what he's got to do to stop my Jeremiah. So even though it wouldn't have been protected, he still would have gotten the block there pretty easily. So anyway, here I go for Joel back from my discard pile. Shuffle a bunch of cards. Notably, I keep Jeremiah in hand because I actually want to put him in my discard pile. I don't want to risk redrawing him on my next turn and then not be able to do the same thing. So yeah, Defender of the Saints can't go to hand or territory. So gotta go deck, discard pile, or reserve. Got kind of an interesting redraw there. Getting the grapes again was kind of annoying. And then also Second Coming, when he's got cross active, kind of makes things a little awkward. But then he goes Deceiver to his reserve for Foreign Wives. And I wasn't really planning to be able to play anything there anyway. Unified Language, I was like, oh, it could be interesting. Probably not going to need it for blocking now anyways. So I could play it and ban to one of his heroes, but ended up not doing that. Just kind of letting the block happen because I wasn't going to be able to get through anyway. I think here is where I realized that I missed the trigger on Patrollers of the Earth. Or the trigger on Idol of Nebuchadnezzar from Patrollers of the Earth coming into play. So yeah, figuring out what to discard here. I end up discarding Jeremiah, which is kind of what I wanted to do anyway, to put him, kind of set up the Defender of the Saints. And then I also discard Scattered because he's not really looking like he's going to be attacking with multiple heroes. This was actually a little bit risky. I should have thought about the fact that, he had like Faith of Samuel and that kind of thing. But yeah, it ends up, I think being the right call where, I was able to take out his Faith of Samuel and some of his other banding enhancements. And his heroes by himself weren't really doing any banding, so wasn't too worried about it. Huh, weird. For some reason, I'm not sure why, or I don't think I was actually playing in double speed. For some reason, I thought it was, but it's hard to tell because I'm not watching it with sound. So, yeah, sorry about that. Now it should be in double speed or at least fast. I don't know, whatever Windows Media Player decided to do. That was the options for watching at double speed on like native on Windows are kind of weird. So anyway, Ezekiel's coming in, drawing a couple more cards. At this point, I wasn't thinking that he had too many like enhancements left to be able to play, so I just go with Azurus and kind of set up a way to answer his whatever other enhancement he might have drawn into or had left. If I remember correctly, he didn't have a whole lot, and he did still have board advantage here because he's got a couple of artifacts down. And yeah, I think, let's see, I was at 7, and he was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. So yeah. So yeah, I was able to play Perez, reserved X cards, which is only 1, and then banned up to 2 characters. So I was able to reserve the cross to enable my perplexing vision and crowd's choice and all that kind of stuff. And then I could also play glory here, except for the fact that Ezekiel's a priest. So fortunately, I thought not to do that. But I do get to discard a card from his reserve with Darius's Satraps. Now, a smart person might consider discarding the cross here, because if he negates Perez, then it kind of puts me back at square one, where I don't have any other evil characters in battle, and then I can't play my dominance. But I got a little greedy, or I made the greedy play of not discarding the cross, and instead just kind of banking on him not having a negate and discarding Contagious Fear instead. And then because of Watchmen, or no, he didn't have Watchmen, I don't think, in this case. I just don't have anybody left to exchange with for Darius' Satraps. So yeah, did not exchange. And then Foreign Wives, I believe, is protected because he, I'm pretty sure he drew off of Ezekiel. But yeah, so I figured that might be good enough, and I did kind of pause there for a little bit before I gave him initiative. Should I play Perplexing Vision now or something? Before he plays anything to negate, which of course he did have Loyalty to David there, which I don't think I saw that in his hand at any point. So that wasn't necessarily a misplay on my part, but I think if I had just discarded the cross with Darius' Satraps, then I would have been in much better shape here. But fortunately, I did remember the Idol of Nebuchadnezzar trigger here, so when he bans 2 Patrollers of the Earth and plays that in battle, I do get a trigger off of Idol of Nebuchadnezzar and can capture Ezekiel once Patrollers has finished his ability. He didn't think about that, or didn't realize that at the time. I don't think there's anything he could have done differently as far as exchanging like different cards with Patrollers of the Earth, but he could have banded to somebody else, potentially from hand, I guess. I don't know. He couldn't have banded to my Joel because of Restored Land. But he could have, if he had banded to Moses, then it would have just negated the band. And then I think it would have been losing by numbers there. And if he banded to Relayer Messages, then it would have been the same effect. So where it's the same trigger from Idol of Nebuchadnezzar because he also is negated. But anyways, he gets to exchange 2 cards from his hand with 2 in reserve. grabs his own Jeremiah and gathered together. And then here's where, I take that Idol of Nebuchadnezzar trigger. And Chad wasn't really prepared for that, didn't have any enhancements to play on patrollers. So that was kind of fortunate how that worked out, because I didn't really have any other ways to win the battle there. I mean, like, I could have done destroying bands to his foreign wives again and basically make him have to have a negate for destroying bands, but it wasn't going to be the best, like, they're the most efficient option, I guess. So I hit delivered off the top again, which is kind of nice, I guess, using Joel to shuffle it back, and then I was able to use the star ability, and then this time hit his storehouse, which was pretty cool, like another significant hit. I thought that was kind of funny that my two delivered hits seemed almost more significant in like card quality than the hit from Queen T, which is basically just card quantity. Hitting storehouse and 3 woes there with delivered is pretty good. So here I'm gonna use the opportunity now to put woes on the cross, and then play some of my dominance here. So I play Son of God to take Complacent out. That way, if Moses ever goes away, I can still use my battle dominance. And then I just get Son of God back into my hand here. Activate Idol of Nebuchadnezzar again to go to my deck for Nebuchadnezzar for the 3rd time now. Every turn of this game, going to Nebuchadnezzar with Idol of Nebuchadnezzar is kind of funny. So I shuffled him back with Joel twice. I was kind of thinking about if I'm ready for the Jeremiah attack this turn, and I was pretty straightforward as having Defender of the Saints. So I was like, all right, let's do it. I think if he blocks here, I was going to be able to make sure that Herod Agrippa wasn't going to be a problem for later turns, and then if not, then I mean, I guess here actually I was able to make sure that Herod Agrippa wouldn't be a problem with restored land, because they get to discard an evil, or is it discard? Yeah, I think it's discard, not reserve. Discard an evil character from his deck, so I was able to just make sure that Herod Agrippa was dealt with. Fortunately, Herod Agrippa was not in his hand. That could have been an issue if he decided just not to block here and then had Herod Agrippa available for future blocks. Like, I don't know if I actually get around that very easily, because I don't have many ways to get the enhancements out of my reserve other than Jeremiah. So if he just has a way to keep on negating Jeremiah and having big numbers, then it wouldn't have been great for me. I mean, I do have some enhancements that I could play, so I could have just like played delivered and then Covenant with David, or maybe I guess just play Unified Language to ban in some heroes and then play Glory. Well, I guess that wouldn't even work. I would have to negate his Herod Agrippa as well somehow. So Solomon's Temple. I guess Solomon's Temple would have been the way to do it. Yeah, I would have just had to get my Ark of the Covenant and then underdeck it with from Solomon's Temple to negate Herod Agrippa. So it would have gotten there eventually, but it definitely would have been trickier, I guess. So at this point, I got Jeremiah, I've got my reserve revealed, ready to go. Goliath, Elijah, Tribute, Satan's Seat, and all. With no concealed riches. But let's see if Chad takes the bait here. It's kind of the thing. And he's only got 4 cards left in his deck. You saw Herod the Great was pretty much the only like actual blocker, or like the only character left in his deck. And so they're the only evil card, the only defensive card pretty much. So he goes to Herod's Guard to Herod's Temple, or Herod's Guard to Herod the Great, activates Herod's Temple and reserves Herod's Guard, so now even fewer evil cards left and available for him. And so he did miss the discard a random card from my reserve here. He kind of unintentionally, or like he forgot, I guess, that he didn't technically do that in the right order, so he kind of called himself, or like when I mentioned like, oh yeah, you're doing it before temple, he kind of called himself out on it, or like held himself to it, I guess, as far as like, oh okay, yeah, I missed that. So he would have discarded Elijah, which I thought was kind of funny. Is like he had a 40% chance, in fairness, to hit a card that didn't really matter, and Elijah was one of those. But yeah, so anyway, put Elijah back in the reserve since, technically timing wise, he should have discarded the random card before Herod's Temple. Um, I was glad that he didn't, or if he had remembered the right timing, it was comforting to know that he would have hit one of the cards that didn't really matter. Which I kind of thought that was a little bit funny, but so now my reserve is revealed, but everything is being tossed, so I have to kind of figure out, okay, which of these cards am I willing to toss to not have later on. But we tossed two of them, or we tossed 4-2 with Lost Child Found there. I should have used Mary's Prophetic Act to toss for 2 instead, because he's only got 3 cards left in his deck, and I wasn't going to need that, whereas Lost Child Found has a little more flexibility. So that would have been better, but I did 2 with Lost Child Found, 3 with Delivered, and then 5 with Covenant with David to take Herod the Great all the way down. And he passed on those ones because it was stalemate once I decreased the first parts. But I mean, he wasn't going to be able to toss me down for 11, so basically as long as he wasn't losing the battle, he wasn't going to do any actual tossing there. But I had the way to actually get him all the way down. Pass the turn to Chad. He deactivates the cross. And you take a look at his discard pile here to kind of see what dominance he might have left. As I didn't remember seeing what the 7th one was. I wasn't sure if I had gotten to see that yet or not, but so now he goes to his reserve. We get to see Entertaining Angels, Faith of Samuel, Reprimand, Repercussion, lots of stuff that I definitely don't want him to be able to play. And so this kind of will be a demonstration of what to do against an opposing Jeremiah, if you can, where I use Crowd's Choice here to grab Queen T so that I can negate Jeremiah. And ideally here, actually, I would have been able to do like Murder's Command and then add Queen T to battle after that, but there actually wasn't really any reason for me to do that at this point, I guess. I think I still had a Malachite Slave left in my deck. I don't know. Murder's Command might have been better just to like take out his Moses and then then add Queen T, but it also gives him an opportunity to play a dominant or something like that, which I didn't know what he had left until now, when I get to see that Harvest Time was the 7th dominant and wasn't terribly scary at that point. He didn't have any cards left in his deck to discard, but I still got to look at his hand, saw that. So Foreseen by Samuel and Gathered Together were his only good enhancements here. Wasn't particularly scared of those. And here's where we realize that the 2 Lost Souls have been sitting in his discard pile this whole game, pretty much. So brought those out. So yeah, definitely not super worried about Gathered Together, in part because my heroes are protected. My Restored Land protects from your opponents, so he could abandon my Jeremiah anyway, but my Joel in particular, I wasn't able to get any value from converting out of my deck, getting some of my characters out, so wasn't too worried about that. But he does get to go to Watchman and go to his discard pile for his Amos, and then he also goes to my Joel, but or at least tries to, until I point out that he's protected. yeah, this is what I was talking about with Green and Amos, where you know, there are a lot of ways to ban in Amos, and then you get that benefit, and lots of ways to get to him. Victorious Being, Watchman, now Amos, a shuffle an evil card, except the dominant controlled by each player. So I'm gonna shuffle my Queen T, and then his own Foreign Wives. And now, because the cross is no longer active, or it was negated by woes, so he deactivated it. Then I can play Perplexing Vision here and go and grab something from my deck. So yeah, I still have a Malachite Slave in there, which I think is why I didn't do Murderous Command at this point. Yeah, nobody to search for with, or nothing left to search for with Perplexing Vision, but I can still add a Hazuris and then go get a brown enhancement from deck. And unfortunately, so this was an interesting thing. Perplexing Vision does count toward your board advantage when you're playing it to add something like Hazuris to battle. So I actually had and Watchman was negating the Evil Search and Shuffle, so I didn't get to take an OT Brown enhancement there either. But yeah, with the Perplexing Vision, I was at 9 cards on my board, and then with his 3 in battle and his now 6 in territory after he shuffled his wives, I did not have, or he did not have board advantage, so that was kind of funny, I guess, how that worked out. So yeah, destroying bans, interrupting the battle, getting to ban in Nebi and Darius's Satraps, and as you remember, I looked at his hand. He only had Gathered Together and Foreseen by Samuel, so I know that banning in Nebi here is going to be good enough for me to win the battle because he's only has 1 enhancement, so he can't toss that and win the battle some other way. So then Satraps is going to go to reserve, take something out, end up going for the first sacrifice. I kind of figured that I had his defense under control at this point, so it's now just kind of a matter of making sure that he doesn't have offensive moves, or at least that's what I was attempting to do until now when I realized that Satraps is actually negated by the Watchman because it's considered an evil search ability. So basically it's just in there for numbers at this point to make sure that I'm big enough with Nebi. And yeah, so I didn't have anything else to play on those guys. Just tossing Foreseen by Samuel wouldn't have done on him a whole lot, so it was better for him to just save that potentially as a future battle winner. Here he puts down Golgotha and is able to get Herod Archelaus back from his reserve, which was a little unfortunate, but Sin Offering is a way to deal with that with Jeremiah, so I wasn't too worried. And got a Grumbled here, which is negated by Moses, so nothing to think about there. Woes moving back to Herod's Temple, because that's kind of the main threat, especially with Herod Archelaus. That would have been kind of unfortunate. Didn't really have any, actually with any evil character with reasonable amount of toughness, I would have been in trouble because, as I mentioned in the intro, my reserve enhancements don't really have a whole lot of strength to them. So attack with Jeremiah, reveal my reserve, and then restore land to discard the Foreign Wives that he shuffled back into his deck. So I think we got a total of 16 cards milled from his deck by the end of the game. So, basically got the Unified Language combo between the 12 with the turn 1 Queen T and then 2 off delivered, 2 off restored land. Seems pretty good. Got especially against a 50 card deck, it's pretty solid. So Jeremiah coming in, paralyzes. Actually, he should have paralyzed Herod, because it's 5 or less, right? Yeah, he should have paralyzed Herod Antipas there, but I guess I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just thinking about the fun I was about to have with all of these cards. So I end up starting it out with Potter in the Clay to make me a -6/4, I believe are the numbers, and then Herod Antipas is now an 11/10. So I've got Plague of Lice here now to take an enhancement from his hand. Basically just make sure that he's not going to have any options left. So you can see that, yeah, pretty much he's down to nothing left. He's got 7 in hand and nothing that can get to his reserve at this point other than Herod Antipas, and then nothing left in his deck. So I took Revolt, and I probably should have taken Reprimand Repercussion because there was actually a chance I could have used that, but yeah, it didn't really matter. So then I used First Sacrifice to underdeck Reprimand and Mary's Prophetic Act to reserve it. And then Sin Offering to banish Herod Antipas. Once I had gotten rid of all of his enhancements to play. So yeah, pretty much that's the idea there, is take out all of your opponent's options and then take them out with Sin Offering. So that was pretty much exactly how I'd planned it out with Jeremiah. Lost Child Found would have been nice too. I decided I should play Son of God here before he can reactivate the cross. Not that I was like super worried about it because I had woes, but I would, I wanted woes to be able to stay on Herod's temple because I know that he still had Herod Archelaus in his hand. And so now we see if Chad's gonna be able to get through with that. I knew he had Elijah in his hand, and that was kind of the only thing I'd really, any concern about. I guess Chariot of Fire also, to get to Elisha from his reserve, but with Idol of Nebuchadnezzar, I actually was like, oh, that's not that big of a concern because Elisha has negated in the special abilities. So as soon as he uses Chariot to add Elisha to battle, his enhancements, I didn't have any evil dominance, so there was no way that he was going to make him CBN anyway. But because he has negated in the special ability, then I'd just be able to capture him with Idol of Nebuchadnezzar. So Elijah wasn't that big of a concern here because I was going to get initiative with Satraps. Nebuchadnezzar would just toss the next, and then Ahasuerus is always just kind of a risk, I guess. I can search for a negate or interrupt, so it's like whether or not that was actually going to do anything for him was kind of a toss-up. So he's thinking about if he's going to be going to battle here or not, if he thinks that he can make it through with the few resources that he has. The other thing is that he is playing Chariot of Fire and Second Coming, so he has to consider, that he's got very few heroes left. So actually, what he ends up doing here is just playing Chariot of Fire and Second Coming to rescue Elijah and Moses, which actually kind of made me think like, oh, I should have gone to Murderous Command earlier to take out his Moses, and then I could have actually probably limited him here. Which, I mean, he could have still gone, like, just attack with Elijah, play Chariot of Fire, or get Elisha. But actually, I would have gotten the trigger off of Idol of Nebuchadnezzar before he would get to play Chariot on Elisha. So, actually, that would have, I think that would have favored me. But anyway, missed that. I did draw my Lawless, which actually works now because of Moses being gone. So, he didn't end up attacking after... he did not end up attacking after playing Chariot and Second Coming. I think he was kind of just resolved to finish the game at this point, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to hold me off and he wasn't going to be able to get through. So we did get pretty close to time here, I think. So that was actually something I was considering because Herod Archelaus was actually potentially an issue here because I wasn't going to be able to win the battle with just Mary's Prophetic Act, and I didn't have any heroes to really band in with Unified Language that were actually going to win me the battle against Herod Archelaus by the numbers, which was kind of interesting. So if he had blocked with Herod Archelaus and discarded my Sin Offering from reserve, it's possible that he would have actually gotten the block there. And we might have timed out. I think probably what I would have done is I would have abandoned Joel and then shuffled a bunch of stuff, and I can't remember. I don't think I actually would have had anything left in my deck, so um, yeah, that I don't know, might have actually been able to get him a block there, which is kind of funny. But yeah, he ended up giving me the Lost Soul and resolving that it wasn't going to be worth it. Um, I don't think there's nothing protecting my reserve. I mean, really, if I had time, and what I should have done is just wait until I had Ark of the Covenant so that Solomon's Temple would be able to negate his evil character. Um, so like that might have been the safer bet, but I think he was kind of resolved to be like, yeah, this is the end of the game. Like, didn't need to prolong things any longer here because he wasn't getting through with his offense and the defense. I mean, it was surprisingly actually formidable, like having that Archelaus there, which is kind of funny because I used my Lost Child Found when I didn't really need to. I should have done Mary's Prophetic Act instead, but I guess the Mary's Prophetic Act did end up being significant because I was able to reserve the Reprimand after I underdecked it with First Sacrifice. So that's, there's some fairness to that. But anyway, that is the game. It was a pretty good one as far as like kind of showcasing my deck, I think, and I think Chad's deck as well. I mean, you saw the power of all the banding enhancements with the angels and stuff that can bring in Amos, like and especially doing that with stuff like the cross active to limit dominance and the scattered and those kind of effects. Like definitely a solid build from Chad. As usual, so I'm sure there will be some refining done and changing up probably some of the the angels and whatnot, making sure he's got some stuff to play on them, and I guess a game plan for Queen T. I don't know, um, but yeah, I'm guessing that kind of caught him off guard, and I also did get a little bit lucky having the lurking right away in my opening hand that I could give to him, and then also what I believe was the maximum I could have hit off of the good brigades in his deck. Like New Covenant, I'm guessing he doesn't really have any other purple cards, and then the gold and white. I guess Golgotha would have hit purple and white there as well. But yeah, I think that probably was the max of good brigades there. So hitting that 12 there was pretty good, even though I didn't hit any like core cards. I think the quantity was just enough in a 50 card deck to make a significant difference. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you all next time with some more shenanigans.